Welcome back. I received so many great questions when I asked for sleep SOS questions for last week's episode that I decided to go ahead and do two SOS episodes this time around. This week, I'm answering Jenna's question about her 8-year-old daughter who needs a parent in the room when she falls asleep at bedtime. If you are interested in submitting a question for a future SOS episode, be sure to follow me on Instagram. My handle is at Sleep and Wellness Coach. Hi, I'm Allison Egidi, a pediatric sleep and wellness coach and a mom of two. I love to help parents find solutions. This is How Long Till Bedtime. I asked Jenna to record and submit her question, so I'll start by playing that.
Hi, Allison. My daughter is 8 years old and struggling to fall asleep on her own. She typically gets between 9.5 and 10 hours of sleep nightly. Typically, we put her to bed around 8:30, and wake her up at 6:15 on school days, and around 7:30, she'll wake up by herself on the weekends. She struggles going to sleep by herself. We've noticed this within the last, I'd say, 6 to 9 months. She'll say she can't do it. She can't do it on her own, and we need to be in the room with her. If we stay in her room and then try to sneak out once she falls asleep, the floor will creak or the door will make noise, and she'll wake up and then she'll say she wasn't asleep at all. She was just closing her eyes. Typically, if we are in the room, she'll fall asleep very quickly within 5 to 10 minutes. Over the last several months, we've tried to work on several different methods to get her to sleep on her own. But as soon as we say we're leaving the room or that she can do it on her own, she'll get extremely upset, get herself into hysterics, and it'll take up to, an hour, sometimes a little bit more than that, for her to finally fall asleep. We've noticed that it's worse. It was worse over the summer and sometimes on the weekends, that I have thought maybe it's because she's not as mentally tired as she is when she's in school. I think it's more of a mental exhaustion and not physical exhaustion because she's in a lot of activities. So looking for some tips and tricks on how we can help her gain some independence and confidence that she is able to go to sleep on her own and doesn't need us all the time and to stay in her room until she is asleep. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say. Thank you.
Jenna, I was immediately drawn to this question because I am hearing from more and more parents of children who are 7 years and older who are struggling with sleep. And during our last survey, many parents said that they had interest in hearing more about sleep for what they would classify as, quote, older kids. So thank you for submitting this great question. First of all, I want to assure you that you are not alone. There are a lot of parents who have elementary age children who are struggling to fall asleep on their own at bedtime and who have negative feelings about sleep similar to your daughter. But I want to assure you and those other parents that it's never too late to teach or reteach our children how to confidently sleep independently. Let's start with how much sleep I like to see 8-year-olds getting. I like to see 8-year-olds getting 10 and a half to 12 hours of sleep each night. Can they get by with less? Yes. I think the vast majority of 8-year-olds out there are probably getting by with less than their optimal amount of sleep. But I also think that there are many, many 8-year-olds who could benefit and be more of their best little selves if they were getting more sleep. As a point of reference, my 9-year-old daughter is her best little self with about 11 to 11 and a half hours of night sleep. Because of all my girls' sporting activities, we certainly have nights where that isn't possible because she also has to get up for school. So there are nights where she is definitely trending closer to that 10 and a half hour mark. And let me tell you that I see the difference, particularly when we have multiple nights where she's up later and getting less than her optimal amount of sleep. The reason I wanted to start there is because I also think it's important for parents to understand that being overtired can really fuel anxiety. I see this every day with many of the young children that I work with. I see it with my own children, and I experience it myself. If you or your child are prone to anxiety, being overtired is like fuel on that anxiety filled fire. I know that for me, when I'm overtired from either not getting enough sleep, staying up too late, or just from having a poor night of sleep, I often find myself worrying about things that I can pretty easily take in stride when I am well rested. I'm guessing some of you can relate to that feeling. And beyond being overtired fueling anxiety, let's just think about when our kids are the most likely to be overtired and or to be anxious. It's going to be at the end of the day. The challenge is that once a child is on that overtired, anxious hamster wheel, it can be tricky to get off because the anxiety is already high. So let's talk through some things that can help get your daughter back on track. First of all, we need to back into an ideal bedtime for her. For your daughter, Jenna, we know that she's not getting enough sleep during the week, and we know that because you're needing to wake her up. I feel very strongly that young children should be waking on their own, naturally waking up the vast majority of the time. And just to be clear, some kids couldn't sleep all the way to 7:30 even if they stayed up way too late. So some kids are naturally waking early and they are still overtired. But in your daughter's case, we know that she can sleep later, and there's proof in that pudding that she's going to benefit from at least 11 hours of sleep, possibly even more. So I would start by shifting bedtime to sometime between 7 and 7:30. This is effective for two reasons. One, it hopefully allows her to get 11 hours of sleep in before the school day, and it's a good bedtime window for this age group. Now, I can guess what you're probably thinking, Jenna. Because you've already experienced bedtime being more challenging on the weekends and during the summer, you're probably anticipating that this earlier bedtime is going to be noticeably more challenging. But I want you to hear my explanation before you write it off. First of all, she's currently falling asleep so quickly during the school week for the exact reason you suspect. She's mentally exhausted. What that actually means is she's crashing. It doesn't mean that that's her ideal bedtime. It means that by 8 or 8:30, she's too tired to really resist sleep, even if she wants to. Second, most kids this age have a sweet spot, what I'll call, quote, early bedtime. And if it's missed, they are going to catch a second wind that will carry them all the way to that point of crashing. So when you try to put them to bed after that sweet spot bedtime, but before that crash time, it's harder for these kids to fall asleep. Therefore, it's taking longer and you could be meeting more resistance. What this means in practice is that 7 p.m. may actually be better than, say, 7:30 because it's possible that she catches her second wind by 7:30. But the reality is this is going to take a little experimentation. So Jenna, I want you to try lights out for a few nights at 7 p.m. Try lights out for a few nights at 7:15 p.m. Try lights out for a few nights at 7:30 p.m. and see which one works best for her, both as it relates to how quickly she falls asleep and how anxious she is about sleep. Now, I want to address her waking when you try to sneak out of the room. I am so glad that you brought this up because so many parents experience this, and I think it's really important to understand why this is the case for so many kids. When a child feels that they, quote, need a parent in the room to sleep, they are already going into the process of falling asleep with resistance. They know that once they fall asleep, the parent is going to leave the room. That means that they don't actually want to fall asleep because, of course, they are trying to keep the parent in the room as long as possible. When they are in that space of resisting sleep, it can actually prevent their body from falling into a high quality sleep. So, for your daughter, I suspect that she's so tired that she starts to fall asleep. But her brain is still in this high alert state, which means any little noise will pull her out of that sleep. I think a lot of parents, particularly moms, can relate to this sensation. When you have a new baby, for example, you may suddenly feel like you're not sleeping nearly as soundly as you used to because you're always on alert waiting for the baby to wake you. And what happens is they don't need to do much to pull you right out of sleep. I think your daughter is falling asleep in that high alert state rather than a calm, bring on the sleep state. This is why it's important to have a plan to get you out of the room. Then she won't be clinging on to that idea of you being in the room and her needing to stay awake to keep you there. That is ultimately going to allow her to fall into a higher quality sleep, which is beneficial for all the reasons you can imagine. In addition to shifting her bedtime earlier, be sure that she has a calm hour leading up to bedtime and a consistent bedtime routine that prepares her body for sleep. I know that it can be tempting to focus on wearing her out on the weekends and during those summer months, but keep that hour leading up to bedtime calm and screen free. We don't want to do anything that could rev her body up or turn it back on and make it harder for her to fall asleep. A good rule of thumb during a reset like this is that once you sit down to dinner, there should be no more screens, no more running, no more jumping, no more tickle sessions, no more playing outside. If you have time between dinner and starting the bedtime routine, which you may not with the earlier bedtime, I want you to think about playing a low key game like Uno or any other card or board game that she likes that doesn't involve jumping around. Once bedtime has improved, you can experiment with not being so structured in the evening, and then you're going to start to learn exactly what actually makes it challenging for her to fall asleep. But during the reset, we want to do everything we can to set her up for a smooth bedtime. This is going to help build her confidence. Then let's move forward to the bedtime routine. You want that bedtime routine to take no more than 30 minutes and you want to keep it simple. For example, take a shower, put on your PJs, brush your teeth, read for 15 minutes, and lights out. Simple, short, and consistent. Lastly, you want to have a plan for how you're going to shift away from sitting in her room every night. There is definitely more than one way to do that, and I don't think there is one right way. I can't recommend a specific method for your daughter, Jenna, without knowing more about her. But the key is communicating the plan and staying consistent, even if it means that there are a handful of nights where it's more challenging, where it actually does take her longer to fall asleep. Sometimes it may feel like we have to go a bit backwards to go forwards. As it relates to the communication piece, this is really important. And she's 8, she's not 3. You want to have a conversation with her before you make any changes. I would talk to her about her sleep and the changes that you plan to make. For example, you might say something along these lines. Hey, we want to talk to you about your sleep. I know that going to bed has felt really hard lately. We want to help you feel more confident about falling asleep on your own. Since I'm not a sleep expert, did you know parents aren't experts in everything? I recently asked a sleep expert to teach me more about sleep so that I could better help you. I learned some really interesting things. I learned that helping you get more sleep can actually make it feel less hard to fall asleep. Isn't that interesting? And the best way to help you get more sleep is to do calm activities after dinner. It's for us to have a consistent bedtime routine that looks like, and you can walk through what's going to look like, and it's to turn out the lights earlier than we have been. One of the things I learned that surprised me is that going to bed earlier can actually make it easier to fall asleep and it will help you get more sleep. Isn't that so interesting? We also want to help you learn how to fall asleep by yourself again. So while we're doing that, we're going to sit in a chair in the hall right outside your door. We're going to sit there all the way until you fall asleep. While I'm sitting in the chair, I'm going to leave the door open a crack. And then once you're asleep, I'm going to leave the chair and close the door. Now, I don't have all the details to know how your daughter will likely respond to this, but let's assume you receive some pushback or resistance since that's what's happened in the past. Then you could say something along the lines of, hey, I know this will feel different, but the good news is that we will be here to help you. Sleep is so important. Did you know that your body grows when you're sleeping? Did you know that your body is able to fight the sick germs when you're sleeping? Did you know that your brain is able to file away and remember all the things you learn at school and that it's able to clear out and make room for you to learn new things? And it does all of that while you're sleeping? Sleep is so important. And it is our job as your parents to make sure that you get the sleep you need. And we love you so much that even if it's hard, we are going to help you learn how to get great sleep. And while we're helping you with your sleep, we're also going to work on getting great sleep for ourselves because sleep is really important for us too. So while we're helping you with your sleep, we're going to try to get better sleep by, and then I want you to say what you're going to do. Is it we're going to try to get better sleep for ourselves by going to bed earlier, by reading before bed instead of watching a show or looking at our phone? Whatever it is that you're going to personally do to improve your sleep, I want you to share it with her. And then you're going to say, and then each morning we can talk about how we slept. And you can tell us how you felt about your sleep last night, and we can tell you how we felt about our sleep. We're going to work on this together. Obviously, you may need to tweak this language based on how you plan to teach her to confidently put herself to sleep. But what you're trying to do is explain the plan or the changes you're making, explain why sleep is important, and explain that it's your job as her parents to help her get the sleep she needs. I want her to know that this comes from a place of love, even if it's not easy, even if she doesn't want to do it, even if she resists you. It's still coming from a place of love because you know this is good for her. And I want you to make it a team sport by working on optimizing your own sleep at the same time. You're doing this together. This isn't just about her not getting great sleep. You all need to get great sleep. And I want you to do this from a calm place of confidence. And I want you to avoid getting into negotiations with her. If she goes into the hysterics that you've experienced in the past, stay calm and stick to a simple line. We know this will feel different, but the good news is that we will be here to help you. Jenna, thank you so much for submitting this Sleep SOS question. I hope these tips help you rebuild your daughter's confidence around sleep and help other parents in a similar situation. Helping our kids feel more confident about their ability to sleep well independently can be the gift that keeps on giving. Because the reality is, we all need to sleep every single night, and sleep can be a bit of a head game. So, we want to help kids navigate that. And if you're a parent listening to this episode and you would like to chat through a specific strategy to help your elementary age child fall asleep with confidence, and you'd like to talk through some specific language that you can use with them, we can always connect for a 30 or 60-minute consultation call. You can sign up for one of those Sleep Tweak consultation calls on the Work With Me page at www.sleepandwellnesscoach.com. I hope you all come back next week to hear a great episode I recorded with a preschool teacher. She's going to share all the things she wished parents knew when they're sending their kids to preschool. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to How Long Till Bedtime. To learn how we can work together to improve your child's sleep, please visit sleepandwellnesscoach.com.